Hi, I'm Rebecca, and continuing our series of Girl Scout cakes, we have one that is shaped like a Thin Mint, which is my personal favorite Girl Scout cookie. Like our Caramel Delight video, we're using a pretty big cake pan, so the 14-inch one, because we usually make it to feed a crowd. You can make it smaller if that's your preference. And we're also going to start with the cake on a cake board, which is just a piece of cardboard. You can buy it at a craft store or any kind of store where you would buy Wilton baking supplies, or you can cut a circle out of a piece of cardboard and cover it with aluminum foil, and it's exactly the same. For this cake, we haven't really found a chocolate mint recipe that's necessarily our favorite yet, but there are a couple ways you can go about making it chocolate and minty, because the key element of a Thin Mint is that it is minty. So what we do is we take a chocolate cake recipe and we put little chopped up Andes mints candies in it. You could, if you have a chocolate brownie recipe or a chocolate mint cake that you like a lot, you can just use that and it'll be fine. So let's get started. Again, this is my mom doing the cake part because I was sick, but I'm sure she'll do great.
So now we're going to take our cake on the cake board and we're going to carve it to look like a Thin Mint cookie. A Thin Mint cookie, if you look at the picture on the box, is slightly rounded all the way around, and it's not totally flat. So we're just going to cut to round everything so it looks more like the cookie does, because the cookie doesn't have the sharp edges. That looks pretty good. And now the top of the cake isn't supposed to be perfectly smooth, so to make it look a little bit more realistic, we're just going to cut a few divots in the top of the cake, because that's actually how the cookies look. Now in this one, you do want your cake to be pretty smooth on top in general, because the frosting that we're using is a warm frosting that we're just going to pour over the top of the cake. There, now we're ready for the frosting. Now it's time to bake the frosting for the Thin Mint cake. We use a warm chocolate frosting because it gets that nice glazed, even coat across the surface of the cake. The standard recipe is 1 cup of sugar, ½ a cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips, 1 stick of butter, and 1/3 of a cup of evaporated milk. Plus at the end you use 1 teaspoon of vanilla. It's always better to have extra frosting rather than too little. So depending on the size of your cake, you may want to make a 1½ recipe or even a double recipe if you're making the cake in a very large size. You put the sugar, the chocolate chips, the butter, and the evaporated milk in a saucepan. You bring it to a low simmer for 2 to 3 minutes. You turn the heat off and you add 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and then the frosting's ready to go. So now we're going to frost the Thin Mint cake. We're going to use the hot melted chocolate frosting while it's still pretty thin. And you're just going to pour it or spoon it over the top, and it's going to run off the edge of the cake and make a giant mess. And it's a good idea to go over the edges with the knife, but just the edges, to make sure that all the raw cake is covered. So all that extra chocolate frosting that dripped off is what you use for that. And you're pretty much done. All we have to do now is clean up the edges, and although it looks really messy, If you just use small pieces of damp paper towel, it actually cleans up pretty easily. And there we go. Our Thin Mint cake is all done.
So there you have it, that's your Thin Mint cake. If you like this video, be sure to check out our Caramel Delight video. Thanks for watching.